Welcome again to Pacific Mystery School, and today we are into the fourth power of stabilization in our Tarot of the Spirit and Visionary Cosmology course. So here we go into number 4, which is how the universe stabilizes itself, and it relates to the 4 tarot cards of the 4s and also the Emperor, and we'll see how it relates to death as well. So here we go. Okay. We're in our year of hermitage. This is the year of the hermit, and we have been inside this idea of yod. So first I'll remind you, catch you up a little bit on where we've been. Our Yoda powers, and where does that come from? It comes from the Hebrew letter called yod, which is the letter for the hermit. And yod is translated a lot as creative hand. So we see our little Yoda up there, and on the right side of the Yoda, we see the Hebrew letter yod. And that letter is a spark of the flame, they call it. And if we look at our hermit from Tarot of the Spirit, that Hebrew letter yod is the sash of the hermit. And this, to the right of the hermit, we see the Hebrew letter aleph, which is the letter for the Fool. And I just wanted to show you this because it's got a little, that's also a yod that's coming out. It's like 2 yods there. It's like a yod, like on the hermit, it's coming down the middle. And then we see this yod-like energy coming out. Aleph is the first letter. Every single letter of the Hebrew alphabet has one of these little squiggles contained in the letter. And that is because it was said the Hebrew letters rose up as flame out of the ground, rising up as flame. And then the tips of the flames were all little yods. And so every letter has that little yod rising up as a flame. And the whole point behind this is everything in the universe, all that is a spark of the one great fire. So we are, each one of us is a spark of the flame. And so I love the way they used that in Star Wars, and the Star Wars imagery with Yoda, because Yoda's the master. Yoda's a spark of the one flame. And once we begin to understand that, we're both, all of us, a spark. We're all the creative hand, quote, of the universe. And we are all at the same moment completely unique and completely individual. So that's what we've been talking about here in the powers of 0, which is space, which is within and outside of all that is. And then the number 1, which is the original being that originates. And then the number 2, the original attractions that begin to create the universe. And then the number 3 is that power of creation, all of that containing the yod energy. So the yod energy is there all along. So that's what we're doing during our hermitage, is discovering and using, you might say, this yod energy, the energy of creation, and sustaining that energy. So today is about how do we sustain the energy. We are universe, and we are of the universe. And this universal spirit runs through all that is. And this is the Hebrew letter Shin, and it's also 3 yods on the top, and that one means fire. And that is the Hebrew letter that's associated with the resurrection card. So you can see it on the resurrection card. So it's like seeing in a bigger way. The universe runs through all that is, universal spirit, and it's the letter that means fire. So the fire, it's the fire for resurrection. The fire burns through the veil, opens the veil, and then we can see a much bigger picture. That's the cosmic field. The cosmic field, unmanifest and manifest, is imbued with the powers of universe. And now we're on this power of the yod, moving it into the power of creation. And then how do we stabilize creation? So manifestation. The root of that is man and hand are related words. Mano, that's hand. We are the creative hand of the universe. Our hand has 5 fingers. This is a review. And universal activity, the activity of the universe requires the first 5 powers on the tree of life. These first 5 powers really move the creativity. And these are the powers contained in our own hand. And this is what the universe needs to operate. The very powers that we are working with and learning about are Yoda powers. Again, there are 10 powers of manifestation, and the first 5 powers, 0, space, 1, centration or origination. All these powers go by different names, but there's an essential meaning to it. The power of attraction, number 2, 3, creation, 4, stabilization, and 5 is destabilization. So it's destruction, cataclysm, destabilization. We're working with all of those. So this month we're in 4, and the next month we go into 5. But the 4 and the 5 are totally interrelated, actually, with one another. So these are how the powers fit on the tree of life. Again, this is review. So this is what we've been working with, is this tree of life and moving down the tree of life. The tree of life has 10 spheres or 10 powers. And this is, we've been working with it. The Western Mystery School has been working with this for a few hundred years, this particular chart, even though it took, there are early versions of this that go back maybe 1,000 years, more than that, I think. But you see trees representing just the different energies of the universe. I don't want to go into that right now, but we've been working with this for a long time, and it holds up. It holds up for us. So we're studying the paths on the tree of life, and that's called path work. I'm reminding you again, we've already talked about this. So we've done the paths 1, 2, and 3, even though they look like they don't go anywhere. It's spheres 1, 2, and 3. They go somewhere. They go deep, 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 deep. And each one is called a book. And you could open that book, get the title of the book, and then you keep going. Thousands and thousands of pages on that one idea. That's why it's a path. Okay, and today we're on number 4. So we move to the number 4. These are paths that lead us to visionary experience, which is our goal. That's what we're doing here right now. Visionary experience, and our own creativity comes alive. The path takes us inward. That sphere, we follow the sphere. The path takes us inward, 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 which expands our outer vision into creating, into creativity, into creation. So powers 1 through 3 set our cosmological powers of creation in motion. So we begin to create our own universe. So the first power, centration or origination, our creations are our own because we're original. And I said, I'm generalizing here. Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. That's the point, right? Oscar Wilde. Be yourself, and then your creations come out in a soulful way. Attraction. Number 2, our creations emerge out of our longings, our desires, our needs, our dreams. Another proverb, necessity is the mother of invention. And even further, dream big. Dream your dream. Dream your dreams. Dreaming a dream. Oh dear, I'm feeling very, suddenly very cliche. If you don't have a dream, how are you going to make a dream come true? That's from that's a little line out of South Pacific. Okay, the play. All right, creation, emergence, that's a power number 3. Each emerging form becomes the center of its own creating sphere. So the possibilities for creation quickly expand into infinitude. This is whatever you create takes on a life of its own and begins its own creative process. That maybe you might be the parent of your creation, but you may not, you actually aren't able to control the outcome of everything you create. Okay, so creation takes on a life of its own and it starts to multiply itself. And here's the great example from part of our world culture: go forth and multiply. Okay, so that's the command, right? That's the command: go forth and multiply. So here's the count: 1, 2, many, which we talked about last time, because it's 1, 2, 3, but it's 1, 2, many. And then here we are, 8.2 billion in 200,000 years, talking about the human species. Okay, creation can be, in a certain sense, cheap. Like, it's so much creation and so much proliferation that it can become cheap in a way. So ideas are a dime a dozen. Another cliche. This has to do with sphere number 3, because we come up with a lot of ideas like, oh, wouldn't this be a great title for a book? She Lives Forever. Isn't that a great title? Or It Will Never Be. Great title. You know, you could come up with 100 titles just sitting and thinking, but unless you actually rein it in and formulate it, all it is kind of empty imagination. It's fun, but okay, so what do we need to take our ideas out of this place of being a dime a dozen? We need intention, discernment, focus, selection, discipline. These are things that can bring something into being, manifestation into being. This begins to move this idea into manifestation and then stabilizes the great work of cosmological creation. So it doesn't happen. We don't stabilize our great work without all of these things: intention, discernment, focus, selection, and so on, and discipline. So it's desire. Desire is really important too. And discipline is very important here for getting something that works and stays, has staying power. So today in our Hermitage, we're exploring the 4th power, stabilization, and this is the art of concentrated, disciplined effort. 4 is the first stage in coding and reproducing manifestation. And this is what the universe does. It codes its creations so that they can continue to produce. So points 1, 2, and 3. So, you know, when we talk about power 1, power 2, and power 3, it's also, we start with 1 point, then we have 2 points, then we have 3 points, and they build on each other. So points, it's very mathematical. Points 1, 2, and 3 become coded sequences that lay the groundwork for stabilization. So what we're looking at is we're looking at 1 point, which becomes the center. Then we're looking at 2 points, which move into relationship. Then we have 3 points, and everything changes because it 1, 2, many. Okay. The universe designs, stabilizes, and codes its creation in order to continue creating. And these are examples that move all the way out throughout the universe. This is the Fibonacci, but it's based on 3. It's based on the power of 3. 1, 2, 3, and then it continues to move. And this spiral effect is ubiquitous throughout the universe and especially on the planet Earth. And then we get to number 4, when we add a 4th point. Whoa, we got the first solid. And this proves it right here. The first solid is the tetrahedron. And tetra means number 4. And once we have that first solid, everything can move in a whole new way. The tetrahedron is a structural building block of universe. Tetra stabilizes. That's the stabilizing force. And again, tetra means 4, number 4. So you have 3 points in a triangle, and then you place another point off outside of that plane, and you've got the solid. And this, what we're looking at is different aspects of the number 4, the way number 4 is used in this little diagram. But of these, this tetrahedron is the first solid. Pythagoras said tetrad. The tetrad is that which holds the power to create 3-dimensional space. And this was a huge revelation. It's like 4 points. Do you see? 3-dimensional space, a solid. Stabilization, this is the power of stabilization. So here's the definition. Stabilis, Latin, means firm, to stand, to maintain a position, not being easily thrown off balance, does not easily decompose. Okay, and then, so that's stable, and then stabilization, is Greek ze for exceeding, tenacious, resilient. And then shun, stabilization, the shun as the suffix means the state or action of being inside of. So stabilization is the action by which the universe secures its creations as well as its ability to continue creating. So both its creations and then coding them, and then creation can continue in a stable fashion. 4 then creates cosmos. Okay, and cosmos means order. So 4 is cosmos, 5 is chaos, where chaos comes in. And we're not going to talk too much about chaos today. Well, we'll go into it a little bit. But 4 is cosmos, the cosmos part. And cosmological order is a stabilized, slowly moving process. It slowly changes, slowly changing processes and slowly changing products. Cosmos is Greek for universe, and it means harmony, a harmonious universe. The universe is considered as a harmonious and orderly system. Cosmos is any complete and orderly system. Okay, we know that it gets disrupted, but in general, it's an orderly moving system. And system is a key too. Systema, Greek, to place together. It's a set of arrangement of things so related or connected as to form a unity or organic whole. It's like it could be a set of facts or principles or rules. And these are classified or arranged in order, in an orderly form, so as to show a logical plan linking the various parts together. And this is what we do as humans, is we try to find the form, we try to find the way, we try to find ways to classify so that we can understand our cosmos, what it is, how it fits together, our place in it. This is our search for meaning. Our search for meaning is our search for cosmos. Slowly changing system. So a slowly changing system can also be a paradigm. You can look at it as a paradigm. And a paradigm is a system that we can understand. And it will work. It will work really well until new knowledge comes in and interrupts the paradigm. And then maybe it no longer holds together. And here's my cat wanting to come in. I don't know if you can hear her. She's interrupting my paradigm right now. Come here. Come on, kitty. She's interrupting my system. Perfect timing for the cat. All right, so cosmological order, it should be a pattern, an example, or a model. Okay, and everything's in order, but you never know when a cat is going to walk in the door, and they don't pay attention. Cats do not pay attention to what's going on. If they want to come in, they're going to come in. Okay, so Perfectly right on cue. That's Angel. Okay. Perfectly organized, orderly universe. Okay, cosmos is slowly changing. This is what we want to realize about cosmos. It's a stabilized process and product with identifiable components. This is our human quest, right, to understand. We have identified atoms, molecules, organisms, species, communities, ecosystems, and eras. This is what we do. We're really good at this, humans, our species. Stabilization in and as universe. Our universe creates the conditions that makes its own evolution possible through centrating, coming together, and hovering around creative centers that bring forth and stabilize ever evolving forms. But they evolve slowly. Adaptation, usually slowly. Emerging forms participate in creating conditions for further stabilization and further generation. So, our universe began to stabilize through orderly subatomic inside atoms and atomic interactions that gave rise to galaxies, superclusters, our Milky Way, our sun, our Earth. So this is all stabilized processes that keep giving birth. So here's our sun, our star, and a star like our sun, which is stabilized, can shine for 10 billion years. I remember hearing that when I was a kid, 10 billion years, probably elementary school, and I don't know if any of you felt this way. I started getting really worried that the sun was going to burn out. 10 billion years? Oh no, that didn't seem like very long to me when I was a kid. I got scared. Oh, the sun could burn out? But all of these things are these slowly moving cycles. It's slow in human terms. Okay, and our Earth is 4.5 billion years old. And Earth was born when the sun was born, because the Earth spun off with the energy. Okay, 4.6 billion years ago, our sun congealed out of the atomic building blocks, swirled into a disk, created a strong wind that blew particles outward to form our solar system, moving around the sun. Our Earth then is a dynamic planet. It's dynamic, but the dynamism is stabilized. It's a dynamic planet with a molten core. It morphed and stabilized into an atmosphere of oxygen and a field of water and land within which untold numbers of complex life forms could begin to flourish. Our Earth generates and sustains life. It is stabilized at a perfect distance from the sun to create all the life that lives on the planet. Stabilized a perfect internal planetary set of conditions, climate and temperature, that could sustain these life forms. Therefore, Earth is called a biosphere. It is a planet on which life, as we know it, as defined by biology, life can emerge and which can continue to support life. So it's a stabilized system that brings forth and brings forth and brings forth. This is a picture of a kelp forest, a thriving kelp forest. Stabilization rises up. It also means rising up. Stabilization rises up over time in this experimental and building process, and this part of the phase of the cycle of manifestation. And within this, the way stabilization rises up and continues is through this power called anabolism. And anabolism means a rising up. And it's creating, but at the same time it's creating, it's stabilizing. So a rising up, it also means to throw into being. The organized process in a plant or animal by which food is changed into living tissue. That's an example of anabolism. So the fourth power, stabilization, is the orderly construction of cosmological processes and products. So it comes through this experimentation, this rising up, this experimentation, this careful working, this careful building of energies until you've got fabulous emergence, fabulous state of emergence, stabilized emergence. Maybe it's stable. Okay, a climax community on Earth is when the fourth power comes into its prime. Okay, so a climax community is when, okay, first of all, any ecosystem goes through orderly stages of evolution. And a highly stabilized ecosystem, a community, is called a climax community. And this is where all kinds of beings are working together to support a whole ecosystem. A climax community generally is a dependable range, or it needs a dependable range of temperature, light, moisture, and mineral content in the soil. And then you've got a whole community that comes forth. And in general, over time, when we have a climax community on Earth, a certain species of tree dominates for a long period of time, geological time. So there have been different periods where different trees were stabilized on the planet Earth, and then throughout all this different different life forms would emerge, but that the tree would be a dominant feature in any ecosystem. So that's a climax community. That's where everything is working perfectly and beautifully and working together like a beautiful forest. Stabilization means maintaining conditions. Homeostasis is another aspect of stabilization, and homeostasis means staying the same. Okay, this is when an organism is physiologically self-regulating and can adjust. So for example, whatever the temperature is outside, our body temperature generally holds steady at around 98.6 degrees, right? So we can hold it steady, like even if it's 25 below zero. I mean, unless we get hugely overwhelmed by it. But we can, and then we will die, from it. But generally, unless we're dying, we maintain that 98.6 degrees throughout our lifetime. And no matter where we live, no matter what climate we're subjected to, whether it's hot, whether it's cold. Okay, so Earth has many ecosystems, and these are relatively stabilized centers of slowly changing communities of life forms that are generally able to adapt to these changing conditions. Okay, the fourth power. So the fourth power is a stabilized, identifiable process and or era. Okay, so here's some ice in the North Pole, right? We can identify where this is and what's happening, and it's a relatively stabilized process. Okay, here are 4 stabilized eras on the planet Earth. So the Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. So in the Precambrian period, Earth was cooling, the crust was forming, there were shallow seas, and the first bacteria evolved and started to create life forms. Paleozoic era, algae emerges, marine life, fish, seed plants, ferns, reptiles, amphibians, cockroaches, a big part of it, I like that, and fungi. Okay, and so here comes all this life form in the Paleozoic period. Then the Mesozoic period, flowers, here come the flowers, dinosaurs, mammals. Oh, it's just all happening. So that gets all stabilized. And then The next period, Cenozoic. That's our era. We're in the Cenozoic era. Primates, horses, monkeys, dogs, ape-like humans, Homo sapiens sapiens. That's us. We're Homo sapiens sapiens. And modern culture begins to appear and spread. So this is where we're at now. So these four really big stages on the planet Earth. And then the development of the human collective, different eras, different phases of the human collective emerging. Paleolithic, early humans, 1.6 million to 20,000 years ago. So that's about when it began. 1.6 million years ago, humans begin to emerge. Hunters, gatherers, domesticating fires and cooking. Those were some of the aspects. Not all of the aspects, of course, but just a few, just to give you an idea of stabilization. So then the Neolithic era, modern humans, 3,500 years ago to 5,000 BC. And now we have stone tools, pottery, weaving, domesticated animals, and agriculture. Then classical civilizations, it just starts to burgeon in Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, China, Europe. And here we have the development of the wheel, writing, domesticating water. You know, all the aqueducts and things that began to happen. Farming, domesticating plants, you know, city-states, metalcraft, gods. That one really interests me a lot. Okay, I don't want to go into it right now, but, you know, imagine that gods happen during classical civilization. Fortifications and temples, and then token economies, money. People start using forms of money. It could be exchange of shells, you know, it could be anything. Whatever's considered to be valuable. Gold, it could even be exchange of, well, we won't go into that any further. Cosmologies cosmologies move into place. Cosmology is stories told. Cosmologies that place humans over other humans begin to emerge, and place humans over other species. So that also emerges during the classical civilizations, as well as warfare, organized warfare. And then here we come to the industrial nation state, which a lot of historians pin it at 1870. So you could say that's kind of a new era. The industrialized nation state as a stabilized era of humanity. And in this industrial nation state, mechanized and owned means of production occur. There are lots of scientific advancements and a lot of machine technologies emerging. Okay, so that was pretty recent. That's our great, grandparents or whatever. So it's pretty recent when that all happened. And now historians are beginning to point around 1980. Things are moving fast now. A new era begins to emerge. Now we've got a different form of production. We've got things becoming very technological, and this is our high-tech era that starts to come forward, and the culture starts to change. A lot of the culture is based around the technologies that are emerging. Of course, it's it works together. Our consciousness creates the technologies, and then the technologies act back on us like that. And so it's a co-created event with the technology. Okay, so what happens? The paradigm evolves, and so what's a paradigm? It's a framework of knowledge. So we have these eras where different paradigms are dominant, and then that paradigm will evolve, and then we can see it rising and falling. And when it comes into its peak, that's like a climax community where everything's working together. But then something will happen, like the climate will change, or maybe there's an invasion or something like that, and then things start to move and change. But in general, 4 means stability. So 4 is about creating foundations It's about creating frames, frameworks, and then also framing the view. Okay, framing the view. So here's a window, framing the view, and that creates what we call point of view or perspective. So POV is your point of view. So this is a big word in movie making. What's your POV? Like, how are you going to direct the camera? What are you trying to say with how you're working, the way you're manipulating what you're seeing? How are you framing it? Point of view. Window, the window. So window means eye of the wind. That's the actual meaning of the word. It is something, a place that is created to admit light and air. And a window frames the view again. POV, point of view, power of perspective, framing the view. And here we come to the emperor. Well, the Hebrew letter for the emperor is He, the window. This is the window. How is the view going to be presented? What is the point of view that the emperor represents? And that point of view is essential for the emperor to have. That's how the emperor stays in power. Cat was sitting on my lap here, and the cat just sped off, and I'm kind of breathing cat right now. Okay, so stable. This is real life. There's real life, and real life is happening. Okay, so the emperor, point of view. Stabilization, Hebrew letter He, the window. The emperor is also called constitutional intelligence. So the emperor card represents the social creation and maintenance of POV. Excuse me. The point of view. And the point of view actually keeps social structures in order. When we share the same perspective, we share the same point of view, and we're going back on to the window the emperor is looking through. Okay, so this is, on this card, the emperor is looking through that window, which is triangular and is in the middle, but it's also framed in a square, and the emperor is the is the window. You can see it integrated with the window. Okay, so the emperor has the vision and also has the authority to frame and constitute the vision. Okay, so we want to be the emperor. We want to be that emperor in our own lives. I'm breathing a little cat still. We got to clear the cat energy. Okay, so we want to be that emperor in our own lives. That's what we want. We want to be able to create our own point of view, and we want to be able to work with that, frame that, see in the way we want to see, and then create from that position, looking through our window and ourselves as the constituting intelligence. So the emperor is the epitome of the power of stabilization in the tarot deck, and yet every card is a cycle. So what happens is the upright emperor, or the emperor who just comes into power, usually is in service, or we could even say the good emperor. The good emperor is in service. When the people come in need and they're yelling and they're screaming, the good emperor asks, "How may I serve?" and listens. And then the emperor stays in power because he does see through windows that others can't see through, mystical windows. He sees what other people can't see. This is a good emperor who has a big vision and a broad perspective. Then the emperor who might be a bad emperor, or the emperor reversed, this is when the stability of the fourth power is challenged, maybe by the new paradigm, a new paradigm that challenges the emperor's energy. And then the bad emperor says, when the people come in and they're yelling and they have their shovels and they're saying, we're in need and we're hungry, the bad emperor says, oh, take them to the kitchen and get them some cake because they're hungry. Well, that's not what they're asking for. That's Marie Antoinette, Let them eat cake. Whoa. It seemed like a good idea to her, but that wasn't the point. They needed a new system, a new paradigm, a new POV to come in to acknowledge their problems. Okay, and then the worst thing you could say, which would be like the Red Queen and Alice in Wonderland, off with their heads. That would be the worst possible. So the wheel is always turning, always cycling, and we are always moving through these energies. So this brings us to the fours. The fours are always cycling, just like the emperor. The emperor is a four. And all the number four cards are always cycling too. So these are these four fours: the four of fire, four of water, four of wind, four of earth, spirit, heart, thought, or mind, and then manifestation or body or embodiment. That's all earth. So these are fours cycling in stages of evolving. So when you're reading the card, actually, if you're reading the card and you get this card, one of these fours, or any card, it's any card in the deck, this is where trusting your intuition becomes a really powerful key. Where is this card in the cycle? Because you might feel like the card is oppressive in some way, or you might find it's liberating in some way. It depends on where it is in the cycle. But the only one who can know that is you, because the cards are meant to, there's no right or wrong way to read the cards. They're meant to enhance your own intuition. And when your own intuition gets fully enhanced and you are trusting yourself implicitly and explicitly, you are in the flow and on the path. And the cards can help you be in that place, but it's got to be based on your own intuition before it can really work. So the fire card, this is the four of fire, flame of spirit. I call it the temple card. So in the good place, in its very exalted place, the temple, we're looking down into a pyramid on this card. We're looking into where it's holding the light inside. And it could be the temple or the church card. Sometimes I call it the church card, holding the people. It's like a stabilized structure that can hold spiritual energy. So the good temple card is a spiritual home. It doesn't have to be like a place, it doesn't have to be an actual temple, but any place that inspirits us or inspirits you, fills you with spirit, versus the bad temple would be a spiritual system that represses, okay, that owns you, that tells you what to think, and that oppresses you. So every card cycling. So at the midpoint, maybe, in the climax community of the temple card, are you following me? The climax community of the number four, at the midpoint, maybe there's some compromise, maybe there's some tolerance and forgiveness within the system that allows it to continue to move forward and to work. So then we're looking, I just leapt up to the air card or the mind card. This would be the four of wind, mastery. Okay, here, this is all about knowledge. This is all about thinking, thought. Knowledge is power. Okay, so the good part of this card is advancing to a position of intellectual mastery. And that means understanding systems and paradigms and having them work for you so that they work for you, and you're becoming a master in your own life. And this is something that we want, that you're mastering a field maybe. Okay. The other side of it, the reverse side, would be concretizing that which has been mastered so that it can't move any further. So it becomes the rule or the only way. And then what that does is it stifles the imagination that gave rise to the knowledge in the first place, right? And then it's going to crack and begin to crumble. So what's the middle way? Maybe keeping the paradigm open for new ideas, or when you're in the space of mastering something, that you actually leave room for the new to enter, even if that might be a little bit scary because we don't know maybe what the new is going to be, but it's helpful in terms of mastery. And then in earth, so earth is all about manifestation and power. So this is the 4 of earth, and this is a door. Like, are you going to open the door? Are you going to close the door? This is all about boundaries, and it can be about wealth, and it can be about holding on to. You own the ways and means, and that's the ways and means of your own empowerment. That would be the positive aspect. But the negative aspect would be the ways and means own you. That would be power over. Okay, so you may be empowered, or you may be repressed, or you may even repress yourself by accumulating too much. Let's say here, this would just be an example, accumulating so much stuff, and then you spend all your time trying to watch over it or look out for it, and then so you're trapped by your own. The vision is trapped in your own castle with your gold, and that's what you've got, right? But you're trapped. You're completely trapped. Okay, so the middle way, it would be power with, some anabolism, building up, but also taking out. So we'll get to that. Also taking things out so it stays balanced. Otherwise, we wind up in a situation of hoarding, for example, and then we can drown under everything. So the middle way may be power with or power together, and it's going to require more of a thought process. And the last one I'm addressing here is water, because this is the 4 of water, which is about heart, and it's about emotion, and it's called the flood. It's about satiation, this card. And we really feel the cycling in the 4 of water, especially. So the 4 of water in its positive aspect would be the heart becomes really full. The 3 of water is a state of grace, and it keeps developing. It's called stream of love. And then it develops and develops until it becomes very, very full. But then with the continuing rise and the fullness of emotion, the waters can become turbulent. And then through these potential storms, we have to keep our focus on some light, because it can become dark. It can rise up and feel like it's going to suffocate us. This card is the moon in Cancer, and the moon, moon is all about changeability, and Cancer is all about hearth and home and closeness, whatever is close in. And so the moon is change. Well, this card is about change and filling and filling. It's good when it's not over the brim, but when it goes over, then it can become really difficult. Okay, so this, I think this, of all the 4s, I think this card is the most mysterious one that we deal with. Okay, and so what we have here with the water is a state of quivering equilibrium. Okay, this is a property inherent actually within the 4, within all the 4s, within all the 4 energy, all the energy of stabilization, because all of it reaches a point where it maxes out. Like we have all those stabilized eras. Like say you have 4 stabilized eras on the planet Earth, but toward the end of that era, things start breaking down and changing, right? So but it's always, if for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, as they say, whatever seems in a state of equilibrium, it's always a quivering equilibrium. And this is something, as students of the mysteries, we need to keep this in mind, I think. I mean, I think this is one of the most important aspects, is to recognize it is always quivering equilibrium. Okay, so where is that going to place us? Where will that place us within the flow of energies? Okay, everything cycles. So we have this highly successful stabilization of processes and products, but that can lead to its opposite, destabilization. Because by its nature, stabilization will keep creating more and more, and then it will become destabilized. So every sphere of the 10 spheres on the Tree of Life, every sphere contains complementary, supplementary, and balancing forces to keep it stable. So every sphere is like the Chinese Tao symbol, where you go far enough into the dark, you find the light. You go far enough into the light, you find the dark. And so it's a continual balancing, always moving. And this is another song, one day you're up and one day you're down, but the world goes on. Okay, so it's always this movement between the prince and the pauper. We don't know which one's going to be on top. It's always changing. And this can happen in our own lives. Just one lifetime where we go from pauper to prince to pauper, moving, continual movement of all these energies. So eventually stabilized systems will crack and cease to hold. So here's the castle falling into ruins. So this would be like the 4 of Earth coming to the end of its cycle. Fire can escape the hearth. And we have seen a lot of this lately. And I know some of you have been in these big fires that you've had to deal with it where you're living. Water rises. And here it is, wiping out towns. Or water evaporates. So, too much, not enough. Water gets sick. Coral reefs bleach. Plastic floats in the ocean. Okay, this is the movement of these cycles. Air gets sick. Emissions, global warming, we're dealing with this now. And we can see what happens. It comes to a stabilized place and then it starts moving beyond. The earth gets sick. It's no longer producing in the way that it did. And as a result, our species is migrating all over the planet, dealing with these conditions. So we're continually migrating. Or a species becomes invasive. Well, I just thought I'd put up the human species for a moment. 8.3 billion and counting. 1 too many. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1 too many. All the creation. And then here we go into not enough. There's too little. There's too little. Or there's too much. And we're just collapsing under it. Or if there's too little, by the way, that might be a moment where we start collecting too much. So, yeah. So so the anabolism, which is the rising up, and the catabolism, which is the taking down, those aren't balanced. Successful system maintenance requires a careful balance to succeed. Because if you have too much of this anabolistic process in your body, that creates cancer. It's too much production. We have to have equal amounts of destruction to take down the multiplying cells. Otherwise, you wind up with too many cells, which creates tumors. And the stability of 4 can cycle itself out in any form. Therefore, again, so here are houses hanging over the ocean with right on top of landslides. Therefore, quivering equilibrium always. It's always quivering. So we need to be aware. There it is, quivering equilibrium. Okay, therefore, death, the death card, back to death. Death number 13 death number 13 stands behind the emperor. So we have the emperor, and emperor's number 4. Death, 1 + 3 is 4. So death stands behind the emperor. Now, death is pregnant. Death will give rise to new life and new beginnings. But there's a process where the emperor, in all that power and with that point of view, and if it becomes rigid, it's coming down. It's going to come down, and then death is right there behind. So the 4 both contains and cycles into the 5. So the 5 is actually inherent in the 4. So when the 4, even when the 4 appears, even when it just begins, the 5 is going to be inherent inside that 4. It's like, for example, when we're born, I hate to mention this almost. This is another thing that could be shocking. But when we're born and we're a little baby, yikes, our death is actually inherent in the birth, right? There are going to be moments where we stabilize our lives and our life becomes like a climax community. It's like everything is stabilized, it's good, it's working, but inherently it contains the 5. And so we will be moving into the 5 from time to time, or there's the big 5s in endings. So here's how we can work with this 4th cycle of power, which is the power of stabilization. So choose your path, concentrate on what is important, learn about it. So this is like dedicate yourself to it, stabilize it, protect it, and then code your processes. Code your processes so you can remember how you're doing it. Create processes to balance and sustain it. What are you sustaining? You're sustaining that which is most important to you. Release the extraneous. Okay, take away things that are not critical to what you're doing or that distract you. And then within the middle of it, prepare for change. And then make adjustments. Like, know you're going to get interrupted. You're trying to do something, you're going to get interrupted. Okay, interruptions happen. Here you are doing your best, and a cat walks in out of nowhere and jumps on you when you least expect it, right? Just when you got it really going, whatever it is you're doing. Okay, we don't know when we're going to get interrupted, how, why, what. Okay, so prepare for change and then make the adjustments you need to make. So integrate that into your process of stabilization, the change part, that things are going to move and change. Okay. And here we come to the final story I want to tell today, the story of the little tree and the goats. Okay, so this is my favorite tale about stabilization, and I tell this story a lot, and I've written this story. Okay, so you have a field full, like an orchard, full of saplings, beautiful little saplings, and you also have a goat herd. So the goats are eating all the saplings and they're trampling everything. Okay, so what can you do? Because you can't manage or maintain the whole thing. So what you can do, though, You could maybe fence out the goats, but in this case, it's not possible because this is this goat herd is yours and this is where they live, right? So what you could do is you can pick out a sapling and then you concentrate upon the little tree. You put a fence around the tree so the goats can't get to that tree. Let them eat the rest because that's what they eat. Okay, put a fence around the tree, protect it, care for it, and get this one tree. Concentrate on this one tree so that it can grow up, so that it can become, and it contains all the seeds of the future. And then perhaps, maybe in some years, one day, this tree will grow up and provide shade for the whole year. The whole herd, I mean, excuse me, the whole herd. That's the power of stabilization. That's the power of stabilization. But you see, to get there, we have to let a lot of other things go to make a thing happen. Okay, are you following me? Are you with me? We have to focus. Okay, I love this picture. That's why I got distracted there for a second. That's actually a mountain goat. I grew up with these mountain goats. Oh, they're so darling. Okay, in the Colorado Rockies. Okay, I won't start telling personal stories right now, but here's how we can become empowered through stabilization. First, dream your dream. So this is coming out of the 3, the power of creation, right? Dream your dream. Then focus your sight and take action. Okay, then the 3rd stage, stabilize your process. And here's where we go wrong a lot of times. We don't prepare for eventual change. Then when eventual change happens, we're thrown by it. Okay, so prepare for eventual change, even as you're building what is so important to you. And here comes the Buddha again. You have a right to the work, but not to the outcome of the work. Okay, but it's a big deal to have a right to the work, because this is what stops a lot of us from doing anything, or doing our dream, whatever it is, bringing our dream into manifestation. We don't bring our dream into manifestation because we don't think we have a right to. It's somebody else does that. We don't do that. Or our people don't do that. Or my type doesn't do that. Or whatever it is. Okay, so dream your dream, trust yourself, and claim the right to the work. And at the same time, know that you're not in charge of the outcome ultimately. The work is going to have a life of its own and it has to be released. But if you have a goal and you set your goal and then you create objectives to reach that goal, that's the power of stabilization. The chances of reaching that goal are far greater than if you don't set your goal and if you don't have those objectives in place to try to reach your goal. Okay, but here's what we can't control. So I'm setting objectives to reach a goal. What I can't control is factors that come in sideways that I hadn't counted on, that I know nothing about, because that happens all the time. Or so take writing, the field of writing, because I do a lot of writing. So you make a book, you create a book, you write a book, and you put it out, and you have no control over the outcome. Maybe no one buys it, that could happen. Or maybe somebody buys it and reads it and doesn't like it, and you're being judged and you're feeling vulnerable about it. Well, all these things can happen. So we just have to do the work the best way we can and then release, and because it will have a life of its own. But it's our right to do the work. Claim the right to do the work, and release the outcome. Okay, and here's a little bonus lesson. So we're on sphere number 4 today, and I have this black line put in between sphere number 4 and sphere number 7, because if you need a way out, if a stabilization is starting to break up or something, here's one of the ways out of the 4. It happens to be the path of the wheel of fortune. Okay, accept that things are going to change. When change starts up, imagine your way through by connecting to sphere number 7 on the path of the Wheel of Fortune. We haven't discussed sphere number 7 yet, but sphere number 7 is the sphere of the vision quest. Okay, so if you feel the stabilization starting to break up, instead of going straight into the breakup, you can go a different direction. You can go into the vision quest to seek healing. Okay, some kind of a visionary experience. And so take the path of the Wheel of Fortune, know that everything's changing, move into sphere 7, because normally what we're going to be doing is moving straight into sphere 5, which we'll talk about next time. But here's a sideways way out. Can you enter into some kind of visionary experience and seek healing? And this is by the way, this woman is she's an old hermit, spinning the fates. So I just wanted to put her in because I just love her. That's the reason. All right, there she is, she's like spinning, weaving our fate. Okay, so here's the secret of 4, and this is really the big secret. Consider all the while what is transient, and then what does endure. What's transient and what endures? Because here's how I feel about this. What endures, I'm going to answer the question, but from one POV, one point of view, one perspective right now. What endures is the deep values and the path that you're on, and the process by which you choose to walk that path. That's what endures. Staying with the depth of what is most important to you and your spiritual self, your spiritual being, your spiritual way of knowing, whatever that might be. That is enduring energy, because we will always be going through eras, cycling, different stages, different moments. Okay, what goes through all of it? What goes back to the beginning and into the future? That's just for your consideration. And then ending on this poem I came across. Well, I didn't come across it. I was working on this work for us. And this opens the chapter in Visionary Cosmology on stabilization, this poem. And I love this poem. So I was reading this poem from Visionary Cosmology. I've come to the house of the immortals. In every corner, wild flowers bloom. In the front garden, trees offer their branches for drying clothes. Where I eat, a wine glass can float in the spring water's chill. Cool in a summer dress, I choose from among heaped piles of books, reciting poems in the moonlight. Every place the wind carries me is home. I love that. That's from Yu Zhanji, China, the 9th century. And that one's was translated by Jane Hirschfield, and it's in a book called Women in Praise of the Sacred. And I love that poem. Okay, so that opens us into visionary cosmology, into stabilization, because it's always going to be continual movement. So what is the house of the immortals in which we live? And every place the wind carries me is home. And here's our reading for today. So this is about our great work, our spiritual work, and the 4th power, stabilization. So we'll return to this. I'm going to end the slideshow, and you can come back and pause on this. So what is important enough for you to stabilize? What is the essence of your great work? What action helps to stabilize your efforts? What teachings support you? What inspires you? What nourishes your soul? And how does your work sustain you? This is the power of stabilization. So we'll come back to this and we'll work with this. Okay, and these are the texts that we're working with. These are the ones we've been working with. Tarot of the Spirit, Visionary Cosmology, the Lightning Papers, Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit, and Tarot of the Spirit. And then sometimes I've been using cards out of the Mystic Arts Tarot deck, which is my son's tarot deck. Okay, I love those cards. Okay. Okay, and then these are our readings, our homework. So chapters in Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit, and we're going to be reading about the fours, the Emperor, Death, because they all return to four. The fourth power, Stabilization. Okay, and then Visionary Cosmology, we'll be reading the chapter on Stabilization, chapter 4, of course. And if you're doing the Visionary Cosmology work, answer all the questions in writing and submit them, and always include the bonus question on that. And then if you're reading Lightning Papers, which I hope you are, read the chapter on Stabilization. Okay, so we're just moving through these books, and we're on number 4 now. Okay, so here's our hermitage so far, and here's our lady who's back, our spinner, and here's Yoda who has reappeared. So these are our Yoda powers so far. You are living universe with universal powers. That's 0. You are unique. You are a specialized spark of universe, never to be duplicated. Your attractions, desires, and passions illuminate your cosmic powers and contributions to the universe. So follow your dreams. That's the number 2, power of attraction. And then the number 3, your creations create the future of creation. So whatever you give out is creating and creating and creating. So now we're at number 4. Stabilize your creations. Stabilize your creative process so that your creations can endure the best they can, with all the things we've been talking about today. Okay, and we'll end in gratitude. So we're going to stop right here, and you can go back and pause on the reading and do the reading for the day. So thank you very much, and I really, really appreciate your joining me on this adventure of these 10 powers, and especially the power of stabilization right now. Thank you.